I want to go back a little bit to that production side of contributing back. So you talked about that that one less diff that you have to deal with when the new main version comes out of the software that you are depending on. Um, was there any challenge with like convincing management on the production side that dealing with one less diff is better and it's worth the effort of working on the code upstream as opposed to maintaining a fix and the difference downstream?
I mean, we now have kind of empirical evidence which shows this since we went from dash v3 to dash v4, and um, so the method the method we used was to take a clean version of mainline v4 and then apply our patches onto it afterwards, and that was a very long and very difficult process. Lots of device testing, again, the TV devices being unique. Um, Lots of device specific issues coming up during testing. And so we can now, in hindsight, empirically say, well, actually, if we'd had 10 times fewer patches to apply, that would be, we'd be seeing a lot less device issues. There'd be a lot less testing required, a lot less dev work as well to actually apply the patches. So now we have the evidence. But I think even before we went through that journey, we do have a good relationship with our product managers. There's a lot of trust built up over working and collaborating with them over the years. Like, I know we've talked a lot about collaboration in the sense of open source and inner source, but cross-discipline collaboration is really important as well. Building those relationships and trust. So, especially in TV where it is such a specialist area, we have that relationship with product managers where if we say this is going to be really difficult on TVs, they kind of trust us and will understand the investment required to make the TV platform work, and that has extended to open source and to Dash.js. But even if someone's bought into something and agrees on the value, they may not agree on the priorities. So it's one thing to say, yes, we value this, yes, we want to invest in it, but it's a different thing to say, and we're going to prioritize that over all the product features we need to deliver for the big events of the year. And I think that's where the challenge comes in. So yeah, getting buy-in is fine, but getting priority against other things, especially if you've got other like technical led things like we want to improve this technical debt or we want to improve our CI/CD processes, we only get a certain amount of, I guess, bandwidth to do technical initiatives, and open source comes under that. I think actually this particular example I'm talking about kind of is technical debt. It's just you fix the technical debt in the open source instead of in your own code in this instance.
So you said that with that fix, you kind of have evidence that doing the upstream work reduces the maintenance cost downstream on your product side. Has that experience been helpful in terms of not just getting the buy-in, but also getting the priority and maybe rethink how the work on the production side is structured? So having that upstream work become part of the workflow as opposed to something that people just look at like it was flat out cost and overhead, which in total it isn't.
Yeah, in terms of the buy-in, absolutely, having that story to tell is really helpful. And yeah, making open source contributions part of just how you do your software rather than an afterthought, rather than a separate ticket, is I think where certainly I would like to see things. I think a really good example I always like is how when unit testing was not as ubiquitous as it is now, you would often get a ticket on the board to deliver the feature and then a separate ticket to add the unit tests. But now that we understand the value of the unit tests and how they are critical to actually delivering the software, the unit tests are included in there. And that's where I want to see open source going, where rather than just doing the upstream contribution as a separate ticket to be prioritized later, it's actually, well, no, let's do it the right way in the right place first time round. You need to have the expertise and the processes in place that you can do that with minimal cost and minimal overhead. But yeah, that is where I hope we're moving towards. In terms of prioritizing all of the work that's kind of, it's too late. We already did the deliver the product feature first and do the open source later, or we didn't even think about doing the open source later back then. Getting those prioritized is still difficult, because even though we've got the evidence, it's like, well, we've just taken V4, so V5, that's a little ways down the road, right? So we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, sort of thing. I think this is often the way with technical debt in general. You complete a product feature in a really difficult part of code, and you turn around and say, that would have been so much quicker if we'd solved this technical debt. And it's like, well, we're not going to be changing that for 6 months, so we don't need to do the technical debt for another 5 months, rather than addressing it straight after you've delivered the feature. I think, yeah, open source technical debt is just the same as normal technical debt in that way. This weird cycle of, well, we've just finished working in that area, so we're not going to be working in that area for some time now.